Zigenya.
What's up, buddy?
Welcome to Based on a True Story. This is episode 3. I'm here with my good friend Kevin Sokolowski, better known as Soko. How are you, Kev?
Oh, what's up, man? How you doing?
We're here to talk about some of the things we've gone through throughout our lives and what we've used to overcome them, what we've used to overcome some of the struggles. Kevin and I have a lot in common. Luckily, his parents loved each other till the end, so he got to witness that to an extent. But we do have a lot of other stuff in common. For one, we went to a different school. We both went to a different alternative school. Want to talk about your experience a little bit, Kev?
The alternative school part?
Yeah.
My school. So my school was Monday through Thursday.
Same.
And what was it? Fridays were half days. So you either did community service or you got the day off, which was completely awesome. I mean, community service was
that random? Like, what was the point of it? Besides being nice to the community, I mean, like...
I think it was just being nice to the community. I can't really remember the exact
I just don't see why
why.
kids would...
I think it was to prepare us for a job. Like, you're working, you know, you're, like doing
what was the incentive, I guess, was my question.
You had to have community service hours to graduate. I don't know why, but that's how it was. You needed 20 credits, and you needed so many hours of community service. So if you didn't show up on Friday, you had to go outside and find community service to do to make up hours if you missed that day on Friday or whatever. So you like had to show up so you could get your hours, and then you didn't miss school. To be honest, I have no idea why it was. Maybe it was the school board that did it or something like that.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I mean, because yours wasn't Utica Community Schools, right?
No, mine was Warrenwood's Tower.
Okay.
So that's what my diploma says on my diploma, obviously.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, it was.
Do you want to talk about why you went to an alternative school?
Why I went to an alternative school? So, that's a good question because I was absolutely terrible in school. Like, had no attention span whatsoever. And then went to Stevenson for 10th grade, and I think the last semester, barely ever went to school. I think I went enough so that I didn't get a phone call home. That was it. Gotcha. And then he caught me red-handed, or my dad, he caught me red-handed, like with the progress report, and was like, "So how did you miss all these classes? You know, if you were at school all day?" And so then he was like, "All right, look, you're you're leaving. You're going to a different school because I want you to graduate." And I think he realized like I was not going to learn from a book, and I was going to learn in person. Like I don't know, I needed a vocational school.
Did you just get to talk like Kevin?
Oh no, he was
down?
he was absolutely. I don't think he was. I don't know. I guess he was disappointed. He knew there was no way it was going to happen. Like I said, my attention span was like 0 in school. Like I hated it. Like usually I'd like fall asleep in class all day, and he was pissed because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in school. But then he just wanted me to graduate, I guess, That
was the most important thing.
Pretty
get
much.
Your damn diploma.
He wanted me to get my diploma, and then he wanted me to, he just wanted me to graduate. He didn't want me to sit in school for, 6 years or drop out and then go get a job, and then I don't have a diploma, So he basically, he tried to get the school to help him find me like like an alternative school or like something there in the day. Like I think he tried sending me to like the tech center at Cousino and do like half the day at Stevenson and half the day there.
Oh, I remember some kids doing that.
Yeah, and then he said he was like, "Screw this! Like you're just gonna go to Enterprise. You need 20 credits to graduate, and if you pass all your classes and don't fail anything, I think he said like I had maybe one class to fail." And then I could still graduate on time, and then I'd graduate with my graduating class. So,
gotcha.
It's pretty much why he sent me to an alternative school at that point. And plus, like I was getting in a lot of trouble. Like I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and going to Warren Woods Enterprise wasn't exactly the greatest crowd either.
What
you
was
know?
the wrong crowd that you were hanging out with?
Wrong crowd?
Well, I don't want names, but I want
I mean,
well, what were they like
uh,
as people?
as people. I don't know, skipping school, hanging out, at some kid's house with his parents not home.
What were you guys doing though? Like, was it like drug use, or were you guys just like hanging out?
Like hanging out and like smoking a bunch of weed, probably.
Okay.
Like that's mainly the gist of that.
The quote unquote burnouts, as they used to be called.
I don't think I was labeled as a burnout because, as you know, our mutual friend Matt, like, we were considered the goth kids or the freaks, which was not true at all because it was more like I don't know, you could say like a pop punk like
It was like
heavy metal type crowd that we
you
hung
aren't
out
gonna go
with.
with the status quo, like just because it was the cool thing to do.
No, and I think like at the time, like a lot of us were like acting out and trying to get attention at the time. I guess you could say. I wasn't really too into it. I just kind of did it because I fit in, and I was like friends with Matt and friends with most of the people that we hung out with. I mean, there might have been a girl that was involved in the group that I had like the hots for, so maybe that's why I did it.
Yeah, that's usually that'll do it.
I mean, but I had no chance like with her or anything like that.
Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, I had no confidence. Like in high school, I had like junior high.
Well, you got hang on,
Elementary.
little disclaimer. Kevin used to be a heavy set boy. He's not he wasn't the
But I always wasn't though.
well, that's true, but I'm just saying he's very fit now. He's a very charming young man.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
But there was a time his sister used to call him Tubbs. There
well,
was.
it still does call me Tommy.
All right, but I mean now it just has more of a sentimental feeling than a sentimental feeling.
Right, but
Meaning
I mean,
more than anything.
like in elementary school, like I was fit, I was athletic. I just didn't know how to act around people, Like, and I never knew. I was really shy. I was always shy in junior high too.
Were you ever medicated?
Was it? They put me on Ritalin for a while.
How old?
Trying to think, like
Ballpark.
I don't know, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, something like that. I think I was put on Ritalin because I mean, I had just no attention span whatsoever. I mean, we can get
You were
into
hyper.
we can like once we get into the whole parent thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
guess.
just trying to get a feeling of how high school was for you.
Well, yeah,
Because we didn't become friends until after high school. So
yeah,
I was just
no,
curious.
no, I get that, and So wait a minute, sorry,
Cut.
lost track of thought.
Yeah, we're going on about high school too much. I threw you off. We're kind of going way too far backwards.
No. This is fine. Just keep recording because we can cut this out.
Okay.
We can cut this out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So we were talking about high school, Ritalin, right? Confidence. So talk about confidence, right?
Yeah. Why were you so shy, do you think?
Why do I think I was so shy? I didn't know how to act. I mean, I didn't know how to express myself. I had a lot of energy and needed a lot of attention. Like
Okay.
a lot of attention,
So you're just hyper boy.
Oh, it was nuts, man. Like, I mean, I would be bouncing off the walls if I could, at the time. And I never knew, elementary, junior high, high school, never knew I was good looking. Never knew until like I was in my mid-20s that like people were like, "Oh, wow, like you're gorgeous." And I was like, and I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but this is what I was told. And then I finally realized like, "Oh, wow."
Gave you a little bit of confidence.
Yeah,
Hearing some positive feedback
exactly.
can help someone's self-confidence. How many times did you, get that confidence at home when you were growing up? A pat on the back. Good job, Kev. Love you, Kev.
Really never. I mean, I did every now and then, but I mean, as you know, that was something like I like strive for at home, is try to get the love and the attention and the, I love you and you did a good job, and I never got that at home, like never once. I mean, I can't say that, but
Right,
I
because
did.
you know the love is there.
Yeah.
You know they love you, and I mean, you're their kid, so it's an obvious your family, but sometimes you just need that reinforcement, that you are on the right track to make sure, you are doing the right thing. Just to make sure you're confident in yourself.
Yeah, and now that we're going into the whole parent aspect and the the confidence thing, so I found this letter, and we can get into this more deeply or whatever, right? And I found this letter and read these letters from like, therapists and like, psychiatrists, because my dad was like trying to figure me out, right? Like just
you could tell he was putting a lot of effort.
He was trying so hard to like get me help and like make sure I was on the right path, and my mom would just lose her shit when she talked to a therapist, and they were like, "Oh, you're the problem. Like you're the reason why." Your kids are going nuts and stuff like that. So then she would get upset. She'd leave the room. We're never coming back to see this person again. And my dad like wanted to fix it. And then he's like, well, fuck, what do I do now?
Right. It sounds like your mom had a hard time admitting it.
Exactly.
That there might be something a little off.
And like reading these letters, like this is what, last year I read them. And it was like literally psychiatrists and therapists saying, you need to pay attention to your son. You need to watch him like a hawk, and you need to like take care of him. Like this is a precious kid that needs so much attention that you need to do this, or else he's like gonna go off the beaten path and do something stupid or whatever it was.
Well, exciting stuff is also dangerous stuff, and if you need to be challenged a lot, sometimes you try to challenge yourself a little too young.
Yeah, you can
and
say that.
That can get dangerous.
Yeah. So so that was basically like my childhood through like, elementary, junior high, high school. And then by the time I was in high school, like, I was picked on a lot, like,
okay.
in, elementary, junior high, and even into high school. In high school, like, I think it was like 9th grade when I finally was just like, fuck this. I'm not taking shit from anybody anymore. And like literally started like, standing up to people, and like going after them, and anything and everything would set me off, and because my dad told me the one rule, because I was like complaining about being picked on all the time, or like kids were making fun of me, and really I brought this upon myself when I was younger, because I just didn't know how to act around people. Just had no clue how to act around anybody.
I get that 100%.
So yeah, and that's and he told me this rule. He's like, you tell him once, you tell him twice, you tell him 3 times, and that's it. Like, you kick the shit out of him. So like that's where like everything changed for me when he gave me that like approval of like, okay, fine, like you warned him once, warned him twice.
Yeah. My dad always said just make sure they hit you once the first time. After that, it's fair game.
So it's
again, not that that's the best parenting advice, but sometimes dads just have a different mindset. They have that.
It's similar.
And I don't mean to say dads, because my mom had the same mindset too, I'm pretty sure. You don't want to tell them violence, but you also want to teach your kids to defend yourself. If you are the kid that other kids see get punched in the face and they do nothing about it, then the next kid thinks it's okay to punch you in the face.
Well, you're basically setting yourself up to be a punching bag and saying, like, oh, this kid's not going to react. This kid's not going to do anything. I can keep doing this over and over again, and it's hysterical. And then they watch you, like, they basically are watching you get a rise out of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's entertainment for kids to do stuff like that.
Right. And it's hard to teach them at a young age. Like, the easiest way to get a bully to stop is to just...
not react.
Ignore them. If they realize they're not getting a rise out of you, then they're just going to just try to find somebody else. Which hopefully the next person will then not try to, do the same thing you did.
And so, and so that's like where, like my mindset was like that. That's how I grew up, because I was like trying to get approval from my parents, trying to get approval from my peers. And then I'm trying to get approval from anywhere, and it's not happening. There was like a few family members where they were like, they'd give me attention and like show me that I was like this human being, where like they had interest in what I was saying, or what I was doing, and they were like, they were hearing me, not just listening to me.
Right. Right. And that's me. That's a big deal. There's a bunch of, you feel like sometimes when you're having a conversation with somebody, they're just kind of like going through the motions. They're just like, yeah.
Right.
And when they start doing that, you can tell they're not really like, they're not into the conversation. They're not focused on you. They're trying to say the next thing before you're done talking.
Exactly. You know, and there's been plenty of, and I mean, like I keep saying, we can, this.
Hang on, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about the father-son relationship you had.
The father-son relationship that we had. So me and my dad definitely were not on the same page throughout my life. I guess there was a lot of things that he wanted me to achieve and like the greatness due to the fact that, you know, I mean, he worked his way up the ladder, you know, went to school, played college ball, then he played for the Lions for a year. And then, you know, so, I mean, there was a lot of expectations on my life and like what I was supposed to succeed with and do. So then, okay, so I was starting to get my life back on track, and then it was around 24 when I got my CDL, and that's like when the
2014.
No, it was 2011.
Oh, you said 24.
No, I was 24.
Oh, you were 24 years old. Okay, go ahead.
I was 24 years old when I got my CDL.
I thought you said it was in 24.
So that was 2011. That I got it. My dad was like ecstatic that I had like a real job. I was like doing something with my life, like getting back on track or getting on track and starting to be like a productive member of society, you know. And that was like the first time I noticed like he was really proud of me. And I'm trying to think. When
the relationship started to bloom.
It started to bloom, but she was a lunch lady. So she was a lunch lady. Then she worked her way up to like a teacher's aide without a degree. And then I think she got like shipped off to another school or something like that. So that's how she got involved in like the whole school system, like kind of like right place, right time type deal. Yeah. And then my dad, you know, he had the great job at Ford, like making a shit ton of money. Hang on,
what was his job before Ford?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Fun fact.
So he was Pause.
Mute your mic. So, Kev, you are one of those friends that I had.
And, I mean, you guys instigated me without a doubt, you know. Course. But, I mean, there was a separation for 2 years there, like, where we did not speak. I didn't speak to anybody, like, you know, Matt, Steve, anybody, you, like, nobody of our friend group, like, did I talk to for 2 years.
You didn't come to my wedding.
I did not.
You weren't invited to my wedding.
I did not. And you know what? Like, it was probably better that way because we were not speaking. Like, I know. and we've talked about this in the past before. Is like you said you felt bad, and I was like, no. Like, I shouldn't have been there. I did not deserve to be there at that time.
I just felt like not inviting you to my wedding might have been a nail in the coffin as far as the friendship went.
No, I understood. At the time, I understood. You know, but what was it? But I mean, the reason why we reconnected after that, though, was what was it? My dad died. And I mean, that's why we're here, right? And I mean,
talking about loss.
Yeah, loss. And then what really reconnected us is how we started talking again. Well, when my dad died, you called me and like consoled me basically, and like kind of talked to me. I think you might have been there at the funeral. Yeah.
I don't blame you for forgetting because when you're there, you're numb. You don't really know what's going on.
And then I remember you saying like, well, you know, we can talk, but we're not best friends. And I was like, that's not what I'm asking for, you know. And then what really like reconnected us and really started like we started talking like more on an intimate level and like getting involved with each other again was when your dad died.
Right.
And I remember calling you, like you texted me or I heard about it, and I called you immediately, and like you were like sobbing, and I was trying to like just talk to you like any way possible to like make you feel like, yeah, you're not alone in this one. Because I was I was in a horrible place. No, that's okay. We can edit this.
Yeah.
So we started like basically what happened was like, you know, I never lived up to his expectations, and I think it was 22 when like I just broke up with Katie, my ex, right? And I was completely dependent on her. Had no clue what I was doing in life. Like relied completely on her. My dad was like fed up with me, like like working at Little Caesars, going nowhere, thinking I'm gonna make something out of that job. So she breaks up with me and just completely stops talking to me. And then like shortly after that, he can't get out of bed for like a week. And my mom's like, finally, like, he's going to the hospital. Like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. Oh. So he goes to the hospital, and then I find out he has cancer, like blood cancer of all things, or no, bone marrow cancer. That's what he had. And then like I was just completely shattered, like broken, like just lost my girlfriend. And then he gets sick, and I find out he has cancer. I didn't know how severe it was at the time.
Okay, I was about to ask you.
But it is pretty severe.
Anytime it's cancer, it's scary. But it's good to know where you're at.
So he's sick, and then like 2 years later, that's when I got my CDL, and that's when I started like improving the relationship with him, and like having enough, and like doing things on my own, and like, starting to be an adult about things, and asking him for advice, and talking to him on an intimate level, and I had a great relationship with him, absolutely great relationship with him. I was like on my verge of buying my first house, and then I bought it, and he was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And this was the second time he went to the hospital. Just to make long story short, the first time like he almost died, and that was like I was completely devastated at that. Like
wake up call, kind of.
What? Yeah. No, it was, and so then he went back to the hospital again. And then I closed on my house, and then what was it like? I think
not too long after.
It was like it was like a week or two after, or like a month after that or whatever. He just passed away, man. Like he was they put him on hospice. He was in the in our house, and people were coming over left and right, and absolutely did not know how to cope with it, didn't know how to deal with it, just had no clue what I was doing, didn't know how to express myself or, ask for help at the time. And just, watched my dad like wither away to nothing. And I finally had this relationship with him, finally had everything going, and then just boom, dead, and like complete shock value. Like just definitely did not realize the ramifications of it until like, 6 months after, like, he passed away. Like, I remember I was, like, at my job, and I'm just driving down the road of I-94, and I just completely start bawling my eyes out, like, didn't do any of the grievance counseling, nothing. Like, thought, oh, I got this all figured out.
Right,
like,
same.
Big, strong man, I can handle this all on my own. Nope, I don't, it's fine, and, it definitely was not fine at all, and, then that's when, because like right when he died, right around the time when he was put on hospice, I did not know how to handle it, and that's when I got into the addiction side of things. Yeah. And that's how I coped.
Right, because you're numb. You don't want to deal with those feelings.
Right, and that's exactly how I coped with it, and I was taking a lot of medications, and I don't know. That's exactly how I coped with it all, at first. And then I hit the whole, fork in the road and didn't know where to go after that. And, yeah.
See, mine, or mine's a little different, is mine was, it was really sudden. I knew my dad had bad health. He didn't keep good health. He smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, went through a 12 pack of Mountain Dew once a day. I remember he'd 2 fried eggs with a shit ton of pepper. Like, it was just his daily routine. And I remember talking to one of our buddies and saying, I think it was about 2 weeks before he passed, and I was like, I don't think he's got much longer. Not that he was showing signs of anything, because he wasn't.
You weren't being serious.
No, I could see the way he was taking care of himself. When I lived with him years beforehand, I'd hear the guy get up in the morning, and it sounded like he was about to lose a lung, the way he was coughing.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to say it was completely unexpected. That being said, I told our friend, like, I could see like 5-10 years. You know, I wasn't expecting 2 weeks. But I told him at the time that was my biggest fear. My biggest fear was losing my dad.
Right.
And I think that was because of the same thing, you know, growing up, we didn't see eye to eye, like I said before. But we really started to, the past few years before he passed, started to get that bond, like you were saying. You know, I think that's the thing that a lot of kids deal with, is not connecting with their dads early on, and then once they get a little bit older, more mature, then they start to have that bond where they can actually just hang out and talk about problems.
Well, I mean, I think through all your mistakes, and then, you know, your dad telling you, like, oh, like, I know better, right? Like, you know, like giving you that fatherly advice, and you're like, don't tell me what to do, you know?
Right.
And then...
You got to prove them wrong.
Exactly. You know, and then when it happens, I think that's where, you
kind of realize that he was rooting for you the whole time.
Pretty much, you know, and you get that gratification, you get that acceptance, and you know, that loving feeling, and like I said, you're being heard, and you're not just being listened to, you know. I mean,
because you got to think too. I mean, that was something that was never talked about when they were our age or even growing up. You know, it's just right or wrong. It was you listen to your parents. Like I said before, my parents said kids should be seen, not heard. Like, you don't, especially males, you don't talk about things like that.
Well, I mean, that was that whole generation, though. And I think, like, and we've had these conversations in private, and I think, you know, my dad used to always tell me, like, I just don't know how to talk to you. I just don't know how to talk to you. Like, he would always tell me how my grandmother, his mom, like, just knew what to say, knew what to do, knew how to react, and he just didn't know what to do. And there's no handbook on any of this, you know, like there's no perfect scenario or like, you know, perfect instructions on how to handle this situation or that situation, you know, and I don't blame him for everything, you know, but you know, you finally get that relationship, and then you're like, boom, dead. Like, what?
And that's pretty much exactly how mine went down. So my wife was 6 weeks away from giving birth to my father's first grandchild, his first grandson. I still remember one of he was on Facebook here and there, and once I finally told everybody that we were having a child, because he was the first one I told, I went to work when she took that pregnancy test, and I was like, she's not going to be pregnant. Like, come on. Got to work, and she calls me, and she says, it's positive.
Oh, my God.
That was supposed to be a crying voice, not an excited voice, because we newlyweds.
Right.
Just say, not that we didn't want to have a child, we just didn't want to have a child yet. Like, it was very unexpected.
I mean, it's, you know, you look at things in life, and they're all blessings. Like, I mean, regardless of if my dad was here today, or you know, if he died previously, like, there was a lot of blessings that came out of his death. Like, I mean, that's how we reconnected. That's exactly how we reconnected.
Right.
You know,
one of the last things he put on, I was trying to think, one of the last things he put on Facebook was, so I finally get to tell everybody I'm going to be a grandfather. Never thought I'd see the day. And like, to this day, it's just like, oh, like, he was right. He didn't get to see the day. He was 6 weeks away. So the day it happened, this is back when I worked till late at night, so I'd sleep in till about noon or 1 in the afternoon. And my aunt called my wife, and I could hear my aunt's voice, and I could tell she sounded like a little hysterical. And it clicked. Like, I jumped out of bed. I go, where's he at? Which hospital? Like, I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why else would my aunt be calling? I don't know. If there's just something about it I knew. So I went to the hospital that said he was at, and when I was right there, they said he's been transferred to another hospital. The hospital a couple miles down the road. So I'm like, okay, if they transferred him, that, to me, that was kind of a good sign. I don't know. I thought that in my mind, like, maybe they saved him and they had better
you had
equipment at
some
the other
hope.
place. Yeah, it was like some hope came back. So I get to the hospital and my whole family's in the waiting room. My older brother's not there yet. And I'm pacing. I'm on the phone with some of our friends.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they call us back in, and it's this like tiny little it's the guy's office, the doctor's office, but it looks like this mini closet with a computer in it. He comes in, he sits down, and I'm like sitting there waiting for him. And he's typing on the computer, typing. I'm like, what the fuck? He finally turns around and he's like, unfortunately, we were not able to save Mr. Knoll, and my legs give out.
Right.
And I get, my first instinct is I'm so pissed off.
Right.
Like, why would you come in here like we're waiting on a life or death answer here to the doctor? Like, why wouldn't you come in? You'd think it'd be like a nice waiting room that a family would go to, where a doctor could say, I'm sorry, we tried everything we could.
I mean, it's not
nothing like that.
I mean, that's the thing.
It was in the middle. It was basically in the middle of the desk where the nurses sit and everything. So we weren't in the waiting room. We were like beyond the emergency doors.
Gotcha.
But we weren't in like any like consoling area. We were just in this like little closet thing.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off. I mean, I went outside, punched a brick wall. Like my knuckles were all messed up. And I was just like, the only thing I could think of, as selfish as it is, like, I was so close. Like, I was so close to, like, making him happy. Because that's something I always thought, we just always butted heads,
Right.
It's my first chance to, make him proud. Like, I'm going to give him his first grandson.
I had a pretty similar situation when I came to the hospital because the doctor was like, oh, he's got 30% chance of living, right? And I'm like, what? Like
30% chance.
30. No, it wasn't that, because 6 months prior to that, he was in the hospital and he had the flu and like pneumonia, right?
Uh-huh.
And they sent him home, just all go sleep it off. And he almost died in the house. And he got back to the hospital. I was like, and I asked the guy, I was like, so is this because you sent him home that one day when he had the flu and pneumonia? And he goes, oh, that really doesn't have anything to do with it. So yeah, like I wanted to like literally, throw that guy through a freaking wall, but it didn't happen. So I mean, I understand the whole hospital doctor thing, and
my thing is like if you have, cause there was like 6 or 7 of us waiting for an answer to see if my dad's alive or not.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
Don't go on your computer and like type up a report and while you have everybody waiting,
Yeah, but I mean, and two, like, definitely made. I think I had that last conversation. I did have that last conversation with my dad, and I should have stayed at the hospital like a few hours longer. Instead, I went home and like cried my eyes out, like on our family room couch, And then by the next day, he was like completely belligerent and had no idea what was going on half the time.
Couldn't understand.
So I mean, at least you didn't have to like watch your hero become human. Like that was devastating. Like, I mean, you knew my dad. Like, he was like a 300-pound shit brick house man. Like he was a shit brick house, and then he was like 185 pounds, like 180 pounds, 6'3", So, I mean, I definitely, and the whole making them proud thing, like, I don't know, we say that shit now, like, oh, we didn't make them proud, but bullshit, like, they were proud. I mean, he wouldn't have put that damn message out on Facebook if he wasn't proud of you,
Yeah.
And that's, like, things you look back at now, and, like...
Well, I mean, to Facebook aside, I mean, at least from my perspective, like, having a kid, like, it's your child, like, it's hard not, I mean, as long as they're still, like, trying to be them and they're making it, I mean, you're proud of them. I mean, you watch this kid crawl, walk, speak, start to, like, you know what I mean? You've watched him grow to an adult, so you're proud of him no matter what.
I mean, you're talking about perspective right now, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at least, like, man, I watched my grandmother, like, walk out of our house, like, just stone cold fine, and she's walking to her car and like crying her eyes out and like saying, I didn't realize it was this hard to bury a child, and like she did 2 of her kids. Like, I mean, could you imagine what it would be like for your dad, if he were to bury you, or if my dad were to, like, I mean, it's just a different perspective, like, I mean, it sucks, but yeah, I mean.
So now, I guess it'd be smart to talk about how we ended up coping with it, because I mean I don't want to say get over it, because I'm going to tell you right now, if this is something you're dealing with,
You're never over it.
yeah, like there's just going to be that hole that doesn't seem to go away, but there are ways to make that hole a lot smaller, because you realize, there's so many life lessons that you will learn throughout your life after your parents pass, whether it's your mother, your father, or anybody that means a lot to you. Those lessons they taught you become more significant. When they were here, maybe there was things that they taught you that you just shrugged off or you just didn't listen to, because you were going to do, whether it was you're going to do things your way or you were just spiteful, hard-headed, whatever it is. You start to realize what you did that maybe put you in their spot, and what you did that maybe caused them to act a certain way, and you start to.
So I mean, yeah, you're looking at the past, or how they saw you. I guess the way I coped with it. I mean, you probably did it differently. You did it way differently. I'll tell you that much, because my road was completely different than yours.
Well, a problem I had with mine was I didn't have much time to mourn, because like I said, I had a baby coming 6 weeks later.
Right.
So I had to switch that mindset right away and then that was such a weird thing. I mean, to be honest, one thing I was most excited about becoming a father about was seeing my dad, seeing how he could react with a child that's 6, 7, 8, remembering how he reacted with me, but what he was going through. But now at the end there, he was very happy. So to see him play with someone like Jackson, who's just, the way he reacts to a lot of things is just a spitting image of me back then.
Right.
So just to see what my dad would have done in those situations, or just to see him be a playful grandfather, and to see that perspective change in my mind from that angry father, I think it could have done a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're exactly right. I always think about it like that, my dad passing away and the way I coped with it, and like looking back at it now, like, I mean, definitely devastated. I had to deal with like my mother. I had to deal with my sister, who like, both of them were like terrified and had no idea what to do, and like looking towards me for answers. And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like I have a house to take care of now. Like I have this full-time job, like, and then like the addiction part was like just completely out of control then,
Like, I could see like it's a slippery slope. I remember like I don't drink much.
Well, that's the first conversation we had, is like, I mean, I was like red flagging you right away and saying like, don't do anything stupid. Like,
yeah, that was your first warning.
Don't start drinking. Don't start taking pills. Like, don't do shit, man, because it's a very slippery slope, and you can like end down that path. And I think I was already telling myself that, like, wow, like I'm screwed now, because I decided to do this instead of that, and but I mean, like the whole coping thing, like, I mean, dude, I didn't deal with that for years and years to come, of looking back at things, oh God. So yeah, I mean, you know.
So Kev, you say at first you were using drugs and or alcohol to cope with your dad's passing, but at one point you got clean. What was the difference between trying to cope with your dad's passing with the addiction and then without?
With the addiction, well, I mean, I'll start with, first to last. I mean, with the addiction, because like at the funeral, right, I'm trying to cope, or I'm trying to be the big strong man, and I had plenty of people that came up to me. These are close friends of my father's, right, and they're sitting there saying like, oh, if you ever need anything, you ever want anything, like if you need help with anything, you can give me a call and I'll be there for you, right?
And there must have been a lot of these guys because like I said, your dad was a lion.
Yeah.
And your Super Bowl parties were crazy.
Dude, there was 500 plus people at his funeral. It was like a 3-day event. I mean, it was absolutely exhausting by the end, And so yeah, there was a few of his close friends that I could reach out to and talk to, and try to get advice from, because that's like who I went to was my father, and I was having that close relationship with him, and say, I would say, hey, how do I fix this, or how do I handle this, right?
And that's a really good point to make, because I had the same thing with my father at the end. Your dad is like the one guy that you can go to where he's looking out for your best interest.
Right.
He's trying to save your ass. Compared to it could be a friend that's trying to influence you to do a certain thing, or a girlfriend that's trying to influence you. You can go to him and he'll give it to you straight.
Right. Yeah, he's going to tell you the things that you don't want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So that was, so after the funeral, and this is months prior, right? And I'm pretty much like in a heavy addiction, like full blown, in complete denial too. So I'm calling these guys asking for advice, and this is just when I'm starting to learn how to live life and do things kind of responsibly, and just finally starting to grow up. And
do these people know that you were dealing with this addiction? Because maybe it could have been he's probably calling for money for something.
Yeah, I wasn't calling for money. That's for sure.
Well, no, but I'm saying that could have been going through their mind if they knew what you were dealing with.
I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I would make these phone calls to certain people, right? And I'm not going to drop names, but then they were just giving me the whole, I'm listening, but they're not saying this word for word, but I'm listening, but I don't care. Right. You have a problem with drinking? Don't drink. Bye. Click.
That's
it's
easy, dude.
What? That's not what I'm asking for, So that's what I was dealing with, and I didn't really have anybody that I could go to and trust to get the straight answer from.
Right.
Because my mother would lie to me and tell me I'm a perfect freaking angel and there's nothing wrong with me and you're good to go.
She could have been dealing with her own denial.
Oh, it was a nightmare dealing with her, because she was crying uncontrollably every single day. So I'm dealing with her, and then my sister, she had her own thing going on and her own coping and stuff like that. So it's dude, I was on my own, and I had the girlfriend I had at the time could, looking back at it, just used me for everything and anything she possibly could, I thought she cared, but she didn't, So I'm going through this, trying to cope with it, and I have no way of doing it. So what do? I just keep numbing it with more and more, pills and alcohol, right? That's what I'm doing. And, and then finally, at the time, my relationship and my mother and my sister, finally confronted me about everything that was going on. It was you have a problem, blah, 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 So, long story short, I ended up going to, to Brighton Hospital for a good week, and and I ended up sobering up, and the first time was not a charm, that's for sure. So we really don't have to get into.
I hear it's usually not, but yeah,
it's not, it's not what it's all cracked up to be the first time, and you think you're ready and then you're not, So looking back at it now, but
But then you got sober. It did work.
Yeah, I got sober, and really how I coped with it, man, was going and getting the proper help, trauma therapy, man.
You said that's been working wonders for you.
But it wasn't just recently. It wasn't a year or two ago that I started seeing this therapist. It was my recent one when I first got out of treatment, and she was just look, this isn't your fault. You were talking about looking back at things and saying, this was me. I was a problem. I was the one to blame for all these things, right? And then that's when you have somebody, a therapist, look at you and say, and even recently, getting that gratification again, not gratification, but getting that, I can't think of the word, but, being told this is not your fault. You were a kid, you're not the reason why these things happened,
Someone believed in you. They thought you were telling the truth.
Right, and my dad, he would, I don't think, he might have apologized later down the road and realized okay, maybe I did things a little differently or wrong, or I wasn't the perfect parent, But
again, it's that male bond. I don't think your dad might have. But either way, whether he said it verbatim or not, I'm sure he showed it in other ways that just the way he talked to you, even maybe you could tell it was a different conversation. He was talking to right. Kevin the man, not Kevin the kid that keeps messing up.
Yeah, and I think honestly the way I coped And the way I really like got over it and like started to accept it more and more was like to start, like, it's amazing when there's a death, man, and like the blessings that come out of it, because one, like it made me grow up real quick, you know, and start, you know, stop acting like a goddamn fool all the time, you know. So and then two, yeah, so like, you know, it made me grow up. And then two, like, you know, I started remembering all these things that he was telling me, you know. I mean, you take a shit for granted because, you know, they're around, you know. I mean, you understand what I'm saying.
If you think a fight happens, like, it'll clear up,
right,
you know, maybe in a week or two.
And you have these things that they tell you, and you're like, oh wow, like now I get it. Now I get it. Now I get it. Like, holy shit, wow, like how fucking retarded am I, you know? But that's kind of like the territory, you know, with this. And I think that's like really, and finding people that I could trust and talk to and confide in and get the proper answers from, you know. And like the big one, you know, I don't think it was until like probably like maybe 2 years ago when I finally realized, like, you know, 2-3 years ago, I think it was, you know, it came from a woman, man. It came from my Aunt Evelyn, man. Like, she was like that. She's a woman, but she's like a father figure, and she tells it how it is. She's from the military, and she doesn't give a flying fuck what I think. Like, you know, I mean, she does.
The excuses.
Yeah, she does, but at the same time, she's gonna tell me how it is, you know, how it's gonna be, and this is how you should deal with it, and this is the proper way of doing things. You know what I mean?
And what she's trying to tell you is it's in your hands, Kev. Like, if you follow these steps, you know, if you do these right things, it's in your hands.
Pretty much, you know. And I mean, it was a long road, man, and you know, to cope with it, and a lot of realizations, like of how things went down, or my perspective of things as growing up with my parents, you know, and my dad, and how things happened, and you know, getting sober was just lost my train of thought.
Probably like the first step.
What?
The first step that needed to be taken to really get through that coping, to really dive deep into your own head and realize, you know, my dad was teaching me this, you know, this is how my dad would want me to react now. My dad wouldn't want me to sit here, you know, getting high, getting messed up. My dad would want me to do something with myself, not sit here and sulk and just do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you, like I said, that's really where, like, I saw the blessings and everything, like, after he died. And like, it was really more like acceptance. You know what I mean? Like, accepting the situation and being like, okay, I can either make the worst out of this, or I can make the best out of this and start to learn something from it, you know. And
that's the biggest thing. You know, when you make a mistake or you have a loss, instead of dwelling on, you know, how bad it is and how negative it is.
Right.
Even something like death, and it's hard to do with death, but find that silver lining where, you know, you learn that lesson. And like for me, like I said, I became a father 6 weeks after I lost the one person that meant the most to me. And to be honest with you, when, like, right before we had Jackson, like, I was like, man, I was like, how am I going to be a dad now? Like, I knew that he was going to be like my crutch going through this in a way, because I knew he wasn't going to be overbearing. I knew that he knew I was going to make mistakes, and I knew that he knew the baby was going to be okay, and I knew that he knew that I'd learn from it. So knowing that I wasn't going to have him in my corner for that, it made me feel like I got to learn how to raise this kid. Not on my own, but from my perspective, because I had Jacqueline and her family, huge help. But from my perspective, from my upbringing, I didn't have no defense. Like, well, I was taught to raise my son this way.
Right.
And I didn't have that dad that was like, yeah, this is how we taught him to do it. You know,
Right.
I just had 5, 6, 7 other people telling me, no, it's this way. This is how we do it.
It almost sounds like you were excited to have fun with him and raising a child and having him
With
around.
him.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean?
Because I almost got to relive that. I got, like I said before, I would have gotten to see my dad, how I pictured my dad if he wasn't the way he was when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Because now he's a happy dude now. He's where he wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now he gets to have fun. He doesn't have all that stress he did like before.
No,
and I've just always heard that grandchild and granddaughter, no matter.
Right.
The connection's great.
Yeah, but how did you cope with all that then? I mean, we haven't exactly had this conversation in private, but you know.
I don't think I've really. I mean, I started dealing with it recently, like how I talked in the first episode. You know, I had that. I wouldn't call it a breakdown, but
Epiphany.
I wouldn't even call it an epiphany. I would just say I had that year-long timeout.
Yeah.
That's when I really started to dive into it, I think. And, you know, like I said before, I didn't know how to be a dad. I didn't know if I wanted to be a dad. But then I started to realize I turned that corner and I started to, you know, self-reflect. And I started to think, like, this is not what he would have wanted you to do. You're not making him proud in any way. So if that was your goal to begin with, you're definitely failing him now.
Right.
And then the ultimatum was, you have 2 kids down there that, you know, you are their world. You're the only thing they really know. You know, if I take them to a house, like yesterday I went to my friend's house. As soon as I stepped outside the door for a hot second, Josie looked at me like, what are you doing? Like, you know, come back, where are you going? But yeah, that was a wake-up call. Like, I don't want to treat my kids the way I was treated, and I'm doing that right now by shutting them out, by not playing with them, by being like putting on those masks where I'm happy with them for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I come upstairs and, you know, it's all just fake. I don't want to have that fake relationship with my kids.
So you're saying you're still dealing with it today, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna deal with it every day.
I mean,
you know
I get that, but you're still coping.
I'm figuring it out every day.
Well, that's fine then. I mean, it takes people longer than others, man.
I know. And like, there was
obviously, like, my relationship with my father was different than your relationship with your father, you know. Right. I mean, it was different, you know, but there was similarities too on how we were raised, or like what was said to us and what was done to us, you know. So I get that part without a fit, you know.
Another way I cope with it too, like I've said before, my thing has always been music. And my dad had songs that he listened to, like I posted before, Days of the New. I believe the song name is Enemy. And when I used to drive around with him, he'd always smack me in the chest. Like, listen. He'd turn up the volume. And I was reading over the lyrics to that song the other day as I was working on some Comeback Kid stuff. And it was almost word for word, like he was trying to say, you know, I'm not trying to change you. I'm on your side. Like, just listen to what I have to say. You're just basically you're being ignorant. Sit down, shut up for a minute and listen to me. But instead it was always, no, you're my enemy. Like, you're trying to change me. You're not going to change me. I'm not going to be your little soldier, I guess you could say. Like, I'm myself, and you have to accept that. And that was just something that we've always butted heads on.
Right.
But now that I'm older, and hearing that song and him always telling me, listen, like, again, the father-son relationship, you don't really talk about feelings and emotions. That was his way to tell me.
That was his way of expressing his feelings to you.
Yeah, and I was too ignorant to realize it. I would always just be like,
but
what are you
you're
doing?
Young, man. You don't know any better.
And that's something that I'm starting to realize.
That's exactly. And that's like how I coped with the whole thing, is that, like, you know, you're young. You don't know any better. I mean, even at 24, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. Like, no clue. Like,
and
even
that's
now.
something I find, like, really, it's funny. Like, you hear a lot of times, you know, you hear 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds, and they're like, man, I'm struggling with this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll hear somebody that's, you know, 20, 30, 40 years older and you're struggling. Just wait till you're 30, wait till you're 40, wait till you're 50. Right. Then that's struggling. You don't even know struggling.
Right.
It's like, no, really, that kid is confused and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Right, exactly. It's like a cry for help, you know.
Right, and instead it turns into like a defensive thing. Like, you're not struggling like how I'm struggling, so no, you're not struggling.
Yeah. I think that's like when you were saying like coping with music, you know, like like a year ago, like my mom passed away. She had Parkinson's.
Right.
She definitely like withered away again, man, just like my dad. But like it was like the anniversary of her death, right? And like my therapist was like, "Well, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna be okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'll be fine. I know how to handle this. Like, I spent tons of time with my mother. Like, I'm really like, I'm not inconsolable or anything like that. But that's what I did. Like, I started listening to music. What was it like? So that's how. Yeah, that's what I did with my mom. Is I was listening to Tommy James and the Shondells. I think we're alone now. Like, I mean, really, any of their music, just to kind of like honor my mom on that day. She basically told me to just do anything. Like, I mean, if my mom liked almonds, like you eat freaking almonds for the day or whatever. Just to, kind of
Do your thing.
yeah, just to throw something out there, just to kind of represent it, or yeah,
My dad.
yeah, to remember her. So,
Right.
and I think that's like what you were doing with. I mean, that's obviously music is definitely your coping mechanism with your dad or other things that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, like my dad's song, which was like I couldn't listen to it for a while. His big song was "Simple Man." He always said, "At my funeral, you better play that damn song." He was so pissed off at me at my wedding because I couldn't think of like a son daughter dance, and I ended up picking "Simple Man." And he comes up to me, he's like all drunk, whatever. He's like, "That's supposed to be my funeral song. What were you thinking, your mother?" But yeah, even I mean, there's a bunch of songs. I mean, any Leonard Skinner, any Kiss. I mean, I could go on and on and on. My dad had a huge influence. Led Zeppelin. I mean, anything older than me, it was either mostly my dad that had the influence.
Right, and I think that's like the way you do things and the way I do things is basically, I guess, if I'm stuck in a situation and I don't know what to do, I kind of like reflect back on what he would tell me to do, or basically, I mean, it's almost like a right from wrong thing. Like, is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? And more than likely, my dad would do the right thing.
Yeah, I think one thing our dads had in common was they were always ethical guys, as in when it comes to the right thing to do, when it comes to taking care of your family or things along those matters.
Right.
He was there.
Right. And I mean, I definitely and I love my dad to death. I mean, yeah, I wish he did things a little bit differently, growing up. And but I mean, like I said, there's no handbook, there's no perfect solution to everything. And
I think the easiest thing to do is just admit that, just like your dad probably admitted, he made mistakes, that you make mistakes too. And you just have to own that and just understand that, especially in this day and age, there's a pretty good chance you could be wrong about what you're saying. Or there could be a pretty good chance that it was just, not that you're wrong, it's just that there's multiple ways to come at things. That
Right.
just because you do things a certain way, that doesn't mean that it's other ways are the wrong way. You know what I mean? One thing that someone always taught me or said to me was, 2 plus 2 is 4, but so is 1 plus 3, and so is 3 plus 1, so is 0 plus. There's multiple ways to
Right.
get to the right answer.
And I mean, looking back at both of our stories and like kind of how things went, and like, yeah, you wish things were different, and loved my parents dearly, and yeah, there was a lot of things that they did and said or how they reacted. There's no, I mean, there was a lot of things that I take responsibility for. Obviously, didn't turn me into a drug addict because that's not how I was raised, without a doubt. And
Or
I
your
mean,
parents didn't put the pills in your mouth, or
Right.
you smoked the weed, you did it.
exactly. And I mean, even back then, like there's no handbook. I mean, you're a parent, you know how it goes. There's just nothing. There's no perfect solution to anything. I mean, there's different.
To say was one thing I guess I kind of missed on my first episode, and that's again, I got a lot of positive reaction, but I also got a little bit of negative reaction.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I really missed on, and a point I tried to get across was the older you get, your perspective changes on what your parents were going through at that age.
Right.
And you start to think that, like you said, they didn't have a handbook. So one thing I started to realize once, now that I have a 6-year-old and I have a 3-year-old, and I'm starting to learn these, and I got to teach my kids these life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And I start to think how my parents taught them. And, they were teaching them for the first time too. Or, for me, it was their second time through, whatever. So maybe they're trying to learn from their mistakes this time.
Right.
But at the same time, there's things that they're dealing with that I'm now dealing with when I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
30, they were a little bit older, whatever. Still, it's tough. It's tough to try to balance that, teach my kids the life lessons, but I got to balance this checkbook, and I have to...
Right.
I have my friends down my throat because I'm not talking to them as much, or why aren't my friends talking to me? I'm reaching out to them, they're not answering, or vice versa.
I mean, you're in control of someone's life. You know?
But there's just a lot going on is the point.
Yeah.
So you're going to make mistakes in each
Yeah.
category, each section across the board.
And then to think about, just think about how many sleepless nights you've had over something you've thought about, anything. It doesn't matter. It could be bills or your job or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then look at, I mean, that's what I think about. Like, my dad, man, is this going to get paid for? Is he going to be able to do this? Is my daughter going to be able to do that? Is my wife still going to be with me?
Right, or I start to think of, why wasn't I in organized hockey? Or why didn't I get to go do this or that?
Right.
And it might have been because I was in trouble, or that could have just been an easy defense for them because they just couldn't afford it.
Right, exactly.
I mean...
Exactly.
And, I might have this idea pumped in my head of, my parents were such assholes. They wouldn't let me do this or that. Maybe they didn't have the money to do it.
Right. And, I mean, we had, for the most part, we had very similar, mothers, right? My mom, she definitely had her issues, and she probably, and we tried to advise her for many years after my dad's death to go try to get help, and try to get through at least the death process with my dad, because it was 7 years later and she's still crying every day.
I mean, but that'd be so heartbreaking for that.
I know it's heartbreaking.
I remember your mom. She was actually a lot like my dad in the way that she would yell at you in a way, but she was just kind of messing with you a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was a serious tone to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She wasn't really as mad as she sounded, but she really wanted you to do whatever she wanted you to do.
Right. Yeah. She kidded around a lot. I mean, she did.
She was fun though. She was a lot of fun.
She was fun.
She was a prankster.
Yeah, she was fun, but at the same time, she could not be the what is it, the butt end of the joke. Is that what you say?
Yeah. They could dish it out, but they couldn't take it.
Oh, she'd get so pissed about that, especially when it came to me, my dad, and my sister, playing a joke on her, or talking about her or something like that, just kind of, poking fun at her. I mean, but I was the same way too, so I can't sit there and point the finger at her for getting pissed about that. But
I guess to put a positive spin on this, because these podcasts, this is supposed to be about, your self-reflection and getting up on that horse and, figuring yourself out. If you had any advice for anybody that's, I don't want to name drop anybody but I know there are people out there personally that maybe I haven't talked to in a little bit, but I'm thinking of somebody in particular right now that I went to school with since elementary school. It's a girl. And I know she lost her father recently, and I can see she's struggling with it. And my heart breaks for the girl, because losing your dad is it's tough.
Either.
So do you have any advice, I guess, for anybody that's, struggling with it?
I mean, regardless of who dies, it sucks. You know what I mean? The moral of the story basically is that, especially if you're old enough and you're around, to spend as much time with that person. If you care about somebody, you should try to spend as much time with them as possible, and get to know them, and ask as many questions as possible. And but after the fact, to go get the proper help and to deal with things the right way. It sucks making that sacrifice and having to deal with it, and being uncomfortable to be comfortable
Being
with
vulnerable.
it. Being vulnerable, yeah. I mean, that's huge, But there's a reason why there's therapists or like psychiatrists, Like I'm either way, I think therapy was like probably the greatest thing I've ever done. Like what really it was trauma. That was like a big thing with me and like how I was raised and what happened, But yeah, I would say don't go and you shouldn't hide things, Like don't try to hide it, like just to embrace it, man. I mean that's really what you got to do. I mean because that's what I said like earlier, dealing with my dad's death, like I had to embrace it and say like this is what it is. These are the blessings that came out of it, and there's nothing I can really do about this anymore than, I mean, I can honor him. I can't live for him though, like because that's not right and that's not what he would want. Yeah, exactly. Just like your dad, I mean, do your own thing, But if you're really struggling with something like this that badly, like then you need to go get help. Like,
right. That's
and there's no shame in that whatsoever. There is no shame in that,
But I guess if there was any coping mechanisms, I mean, mine was obvious. Like I use music a lot. I started playing the drums, and I just, when I got into that depressed mood, I would write in my journal, but I would also, I'd just bang it out on the drums. I took all my energy and I just focused on learning that. I put the headphones on. Luckily for me, I have that. If music isn't your thing, if that's not helping you cope with it,
no, I understand what you're saying, and I mean to be honest, man, you shouldn't do this alone, like that would be my biggest advice. Don't do this alone. Don't sit there and try to go figure something out on your own when there's plenty of people. I mean, there's got to be a friend or a family member or, like I said, professional help out there to give you a hand with this, I mean, if there is something that keeps your mind off of things, like, I don't know, something that's healthy, that, a healthy addiction, like, I mean, I don't know, working, playing the drums, getting a hobby, You
got to keep your mind busy is what it comes down to.
Exactly, but...
And that comes with that could be dealing with a loss. That could be anxiety, depression. That could be a lot of anything you're dwelling on, anything that's causing you stress. The big thing is just keeping your mind busy where you don't get down that rabbit hole and then you start thinking negatively about yourself. And next thing you know, you're just stuck in this rut and you just need to build on yourself. And that's something when it comes to self-awareness and self-care. It's not a selfish thing. It's not selfish to let go of your parent and work on yourself because you find out a lot about your relationship with your parents once you start working on yourself and once you start wondering, why does this get me so sad? Why does this piss me off so bad?
Right.
You step outside of that box and instead of letting that thing, bring you down or piss you off, you start to figure out why it does that.
Well, I mean,
and then you can start changing that. And then you start looking at it from a different perspective.
Well, I mean, my opinion is it has to do with a lot with regret, man. Like resentments. I mean, you can't get answers anymore if you think about it. You can't.
But you can when you, like you said, if you get out and you start talking to family members and stuff like that, or when you start to self-reflect on yourself, and you instead of just thinking of my dad did this to me.
But at the time,
think of why did he do that to you?
Yeah, but at the time, you think about it. If you're trying to do this on your own, which you shouldn't, and I don't recommend it because it's horrible.
Right.
But you can't. You don't have answers to the questions that you have. I mean, and that's what you're saying too. Is like talk to family and friends, or talk to people about why was this done this way or why was this done? One that we've talked about is like I wish I could find out all the bad things my dad did. Not because I want to know, how horrible of a guy he was, or
you just want to know his personality.
That's it. That's it. Like I want to find out his mistakes because
what kind of risks was he willing to take?
He finally started telling me things like that, and then and then he died. So I didn't really know him from inside and out, and oh, this is where I get this from, or this is where I get that from, and
you knew what he was like as a father, and you wanted to know what he was like as a friend.
Right. I mean, not even a friend, just as a person,
I know, but I'm saying
as a human,
Right.
That's exactly what it is. Is that, I just wanted to know him, like what his personality was, what are the bad things he did, what are the good things he did, like what did he do in high school, what did he do in anything. It didn't matter.
An outline.
That was it. That was it. And like some of my dad's friends think that like, oh, I'm trying to get dirt on this guy so I can just bash him all the hell. And I was like, no, I just want to learn about my dad. That's it.
Yeah.
Like he was just starting to tell me all that good shit and all the like the fucked up things he did all the time. And it was like, thank God, like he finally started trusting me with this information, because before he'd be like, oh, you don't need to know that, like, so.
I guess the moral of the story is, I mean, whether you take Kevin's advice and, you go out and you go get help if it's really that bad, or, you reach out to friends and family so you don't end up down that rabbit hole, or my advice, explore your past a little bit and don't point fingers at, who did what, and start pointing the finger at yourself a little bit and say, I'm not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. Where can I improve? How can I improve myself? How were my parents? Understand that your parents were going through things too. No matter what, just don't sit there and dwell.
You can't just sit there and like suppress feelings.
Netflix and chilling isn't gonna fix it.
No, it's not. It's not gonna fix it. Going out to the bar every night or like doing other things is not gonna fix your problems. That's for sure. It's just gonna make them worse in the long run.
Gotta face them.
And that's it. And like we've said this, I've told you this. Like you have to be uncomfortable to be comfortable with it. And I think that's what helped me with like my mom's death this past year, is that like I just embraced it, man. Like, I mean, it sucked. It was miserable. Like, I did not want to be in that hospital, especially with this whole COVID shit. But like, I spent so much time with her. I really didn't have any more regrets. And like, dude, I was just sick.
You made sure you got that closure this time.
Oh, I was just tired of like seeing her like that and how miserable she was, man. And like, I didn't have to worry about her all the time, or, it sucked. I mean, I still get choked up about it here and there, but,
You're still pushing on. You're still still doing a hell of a job doing it.
Well, yeah.
With your girlfriend of how long now?
Oh, what, year and a half now, man? Jeez.
Just got back from Colorado.
Yeah, Val, man, that was sick.
Ripping it up.
I mean, that was like, healthy relationships, man. That's what I'm saying. Healthy relationships. Like, without her, man, like, I have no fucking clue what I'd be doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still on a good path, but
she gives you that security that your parents gave you.
Yeah, and like I can look at her and like honest answers, like I was saying, like with my aunt and with her, like I can look at them and say, am I doing things the right way? Am I thinking the right way, or am I just absolutely fucking belligerent? Like,
and she's the kind of person that will tell you, no, Kevin, you're kind of being belligerent.
Exactly.
She's not just gonna tell you, no, you're fine, Kevin. It's everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. She could say, like you need to calm down, or you need to handle things differently, and like and I accept it, like we're complete opposites, but thank God she's around, man, because even with my mom, like she was there for me through thick and thin, like I mean, luckily she didn't know like me from in the past. I know, right? Yeah. I tell her like stories like this, and she's like, "Oh my God, you did that!" Like,
bad boy,
right? But I mean, that's the moral of the story here, man. It's like do not do this alone, man. Don't hide,
Because you know what, whether you do it my way or your way, there's better days if you just keep working towards it. Just keep working towards it. Just don't hide from it.
Well, I think that's what you're doing right now, bud. Like, I mean. Yeah, I've said it before, I'm proud of you, and you're starting to embrace it,
Thank
you,
brother.
You're starting to be uncomfortable to be comfortable with it, like.
All right, I figured I've been uncomfortable for so long, I may as well just roll with it.
Right. I mean, not even that, it's just, you're starting to like realize I don't have to do this alone anymore, Right. You don't have to be that, like I said, that 50s, 60s mentality, like, oh, I don't need to talk about my feelings. I don't need to do this. I'm not a man. Oh, people are going to think I'm this big.
The language is supposed to be watched, so that'll be a beep.
Yeah, that's fine. You go ahead and do that. But still, like, I mean, that's what you're learning, I think, Being vulnerable is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, you know. So.
Well, this has been fun, my friend.
It's
Kevin will
been
be
a
on
long
a lot
night.
more.
Long night. Just getting to know this.